Cool. Hey, this is Eric and Stephanie with Productivity Advocates. This week we are talking about trust in the workspace, and we are referring to the book Speed of Trust by Covey a lot because he has got this figured out, and this is something that you can totally just go and read and get more of information on it. So, in the Speed of Trust, Covey argues that trust is not merely a soft, feel-good concept. It is a critical, measurable factor that determines the speed and efficiency of every organization. Trust, he explains, functions like the hidden variable of business success. When it's high, productivity increases and costs decrease. When it's low, everything slows down, requiring more oversight, more bureaucracy, and more energy. This idea is best understood through a simple analogy. The workplace is like a vehicle. Leaders are the drivers who steer the directions. Employees are the engine that generates forward motion. And trust is a fuel that makes everything move. Without fuel, the most expensive car in the world is nothing more than an attractive sculpture sitting idle. With the right fuel, however, the same vehicle can accelerate, maneuver, and reach its destination quickly. Covey's message is clear. If leaders want to build productive organizations, they must stop trying to push the car themselves and instead learn to fuel and trust the engine that drives it. Trust is an interesting aspect, and it's hard to have trust if you do not have action behind it. And that is what we're going to be talking about is, why trust matters and how you can continue to keep it going. What thoughts do you have on trust in the workplace, Stephanie?
I think trust is, as a leader, you're being consistent in your everyday follow through and your everyday actions rather than the big promises. And it's also being confident that your employees are there and they're going to do their job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about the car analogy because obviously I've been a mechanic forever. Do you know how much trust we put into our cars? It's quite interesting, and it's almost like we put more trust in our cars than we do in our employees that they can just get the stuff done. But I did a study once because I'm all about how engine works, and it's just a kind of a rough study. But I was like, one of my things is I don't have as much trust in cars as I should because I know of all the more working models and what it takes for an engine to get powered. If you drove a V6 car from, let's say, San Francisco down to Florida, I did an average of 75 miles per hour, and RPMs were about 3,000 RPMs. I was wondering how many small micro explosions a car generates between those from going to California to Florida, and roughly it'd be about 50 million small explosions. 50 million to power you to Florida from California. And so I think about that stuff and I'm just like, oh my gosh, there is so much going on in a vehicle that people don't even realize to power them from one location to another. But yet we have a simple trust with it. And the car actually gives you every sign. It's like, hey, I'm low on fuel. It gives you gauges, it gives you a speedometer to know where you're at. Heck, the car even keeps you comfortable and entertains you at the same time. And so you think about a car and everything that it does, it's like, wow, vehicles are amazing to transport us wherever we want to go. And all we have to do is simply fuel them and make sure they're maintained. They tell us everything else, and if there is a problem. So is there really a reason that I shouldn't trust a vehicle to take me from San Francisco to Florida? Our current vehicle has about 295,000 miles. My wife's like, would you trust this vehicle to go? And I'm like, well, I've maintained it well, and I've done everything with it. It's a very comfortable car. I just simply want to try it. If something happens on the road, guess what? We'll adapt to it and you know, we'll figure it out. But would it make it down to Florida and back? I believe it would. I have trust that it would because I have maintained it and I also know the vehicle very well. We've had it for 150,000 miles. So now let's go into employees and say why trust matters. So we're talking about a vehicle that's an object that is doesn't have personality. It's not a human being. It doesn't think compared to a human being that does. And so if you don't have trust in your employees, are they going to be able to fill that? If you're in a situation where you're coaching your girls on a volleyball team and you didn't trust what their abilities were, would they be able to fill that, Stephanie?
Oh yeah. They can feel it when I'm even just a little bit irritated.
And so they trust that it's like, well, we're going to get a talking to after this match or after this game because, there's body signals and we have another article about your indicators. Well, you put out indicators and one of those things is if you don't trust your employees, I guarantee they're going to know that it's like they do not trust us. I interviewed an HR manager the other day, and I was asking them about their uh, their leaders. She has no trust in them, absolutely none. And with the stuff that they said, it just and through the stories that she's told me, I can see why because they don't have a lot of follow through. They have 100% expectations, but they do not want to put any action forward to give them the correct support that they actually need. And even through a HR conference that we did a few months ago, we interviewed everybody that came to our booth and we were talking about productivity and diagnosing. And we asked them if this would be needed within their organization. And they were like, absolutely. And we said, do you think that your leaders would be up for it? They're like, absolutely not. And we didn't get one person that we interviewed that said their leaders would be willing to listen because they could be part of the problem. Yeah, you're a human being. Of course, take accountability. You have all the information. So trust, or, if you don't have trust in your employees, they're going to see it. And if you don't understand that they have an integral part of powering the organization and appreciate that, they're going to see it as well, and they're not going to perform well. So could trust affect productivity in the workplace? Absolutely.
Well, you're also going to leak energy. Like, I mean, usually you go into a job and you're excited because you went into that field because you enjoy it. But if your leaders don't trust you, then you're not going to have that high energy that you had in the first place. And then you're going to lose money because the productivity is low.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we talked about a person the other day that their main leader actually let go of all of his executive team, and um, the trust in employees has just gone down, and the morale. And this employee flat out said, "I do the minimal to keep my job." And why is that? Because of the leadership. And it's like, wow, that's sad that a leader wouldn't take a step back and realize that they could be the issue, but for productivity. And that goes into trust. It absolutely goes into trust. So Covey says when trust goes up, speed goes up and costs go down. What does that look like in practice? If you think about it, when somebody is happy and they feel secure in their workplace, they can actually focus on the job at hand. If they can't focus, then we've talked about the fight or flight um, problem as well. If they think that they're going to have to start looking for another job, are they going to be able to be focused on the work at hand? Absolutely not. When I was a firefighter EMT, I knew I could trust um, my fellow EMTs when we were on a scene. We talked about the scene as we were going. We prepped for it. We trained for it. We knew everybody had their certain position. But there was this once that we had it was when I was first an EMT, and we had a driver that when we came on scene, the person, our patient, was on the other side of the freeway. We were heading northbound, and they were on the southbound lanes. Well, there was an emergency um, break in between the lines, but the problem is the person was on the north side of it and not on the south side. So we should have gone up to the next on ramp, turned around, and came and accessed it that way. Instead, they actually turned on that and started going northbound on the southbound lanes for about a half a mile. Totally put every one of us in danger. I look to the other people in the back, and because I always like to kind of see where we're going, see where we're at. I said, put your seatbelt, make sure your seat belted in because we're going the wrong way on the freeway. Well, how many leaders do that? How many put them in danger because they do not trust the system? They do not trust the people that they hired them for. So, leaders can put people in a really bad situation and then they try to blame everybody else. They don't trust the system. So one of the things that Covey also talks is the five waves of trust. So self-trust. Well, if you don't trust yourself and your skills and abilities, why is that? Is it because it's a work environment that doesn't allow you to do that? Also, relationship trust. Um, if you're always thinking about something that's different, that somebody's judging you or something to that effect in the workplace, that's not going to help out building trust. Organizational trust. If you're a driver of a car and you don't turn the battery on and you just start pushing it, you're not going to get very far and you're going to wear yourself out. There's systems in place. I mean, the amount of organization that's in a car that's in constant communication and communication with you as a leader, you see all the gauges. You have the choice to read those or not. And that car is very organized to get you from point A to point B. If you're not organized within your system, and you have trust in there, it's not going to go anywhere. And then people are going to be wondering, well, what about this? If you're organized, then people want to know that, you know, it's going to be just great. So, and then market trust and society trust. So, so there's a lot to talk about with trust in the workplace. And we can continue just go on and on with it, but um, what let's see. So Covey also talks about the four cores of credibility: integrity, intent, capabilities, and results. So integrity in doing what you need to do. As a leader, you have all the information. You should have all the information to be able to direct your organization. Just like turning your vehicle on. You power it up. You are the one that turns it on. You're the one that controls it. You're the one that puts on the brakes, that turns the wheel, puts it in gear. You are the one, and it's really about situational style of leadership as well. You're the one that has to change to the situation at hand because you never know. You never know what's going to happen and what doesn't happen. Um, and you have to have the integrity to go along with it as well. So, and then the intent. What is your intent? There's so many people that focus on numbers. There's a great quote that I heard the other day that was from, let's see, let's just search it out here real quick. Where did it go? It's from Zachary Levi. He did a conference here about mental health. And this is his quote. He says, "We are living in really wacky times, guys. If we don't start seeing each other as human beings if we don't stop dehumanizing each other, we are going to keep going down really rocky roads. Well, when leaders tend to focus too much on numbers, then they start dehumanizing people. They're just focusing on the numbers. And the numbers can't always, they don't have personality. Um, they're not human. They're dehumanizing. And it's like you do need to have numbers, but where does that cross by focusing on so much on the numbers that you dehumanize your employees? And that's the intent that comes along with it. So many people I've talked to, well, our numbers are this. And it's like, yeah, but if you'd focus on the people, those numbers would automatically go up. It's proven. And then capabilities and results. So capabilities, your employees have the capabilities to do what they need. You hired them specifically for that. And so you have to trust that they'll be able to do it. And then follow up with results. Uh, Funny story, another story of interviewing somebody. This person worked at a organization and they had a very good um, communication that they tracked productivity to the T, that every month the leaders were on it and they were supportive and their work environment was fantastic. Well, some reason somebody retired, one of the main leaders, they brought in another person, and within 6 months, that person realized that they were a problem with the productivity and their leadership style. So they ended up getting rid of every bit of tracking that they were doing within productivity, and the company went downhill really fast, and a lot of the senior employees ended up leaving as a result of it. And the leader wouldn't take accountability that they were the problem, and ended up losing a lot of different people, and all because they didn't want to be accountable for the results that are coming in from the productivity. And so there's a trust issue and a personal issue that was his problem, um, that they didn't want to take credit for. And instead, the business went down and went down big time. So, yeah. So, what can a leader do, in your opinion, Stephanie, to start building and restoring trust after it's been gone?
I feel like the little things matter. When we were listening to that The Way I Heard It podcast with Gary Ridge on it, the WD-40 CEO, he talked about how he wanted his employees to just send an email about what they learned, and then they would have their name in a drawing. And then a prize would come out, like I think quarterly or something like that. And no one trusted it in the first place. But he did small actions and kept being diligent with it, that finally employees started trusting him and started doing the email about what they learned. And they were able to develop this really cool program with like 96% engagement and productivity.
Yeah, and that was through COVID. It was 96%. So they build trust, but it does not come overnight. The you got to do the short-term things and have a long-term plan with it as well, but you have to follow through with it, because there's another organization that they did a short-term um, gain, that they were trying to be super positive with everybody, but their actions completely spoke differently. And they didn't, that system did not excel at all. It didn't take place at all because the people did not trust that they were actually going to do what they said, because of previous and by the follow through. And what happened to them, within a couple of years, their workforce, I mean, they laid off almost 1,500 employees last year. And so Is it a leadership problem or is it an employee problem? If the leadership doesn't follow through with what they say, then that is a big time trust issue. And so it takes time, and the problem is people want overnight success, but honestly, to build trust in an organization will take years, and it'll take a lot of effort on the uh, leadership part. It's not going to come from the employees, and the leaders should not expect the employees to build a trusting work culture. It has to come from the top. The fuel to build a trust and a good, productive work environment has to come from the leadership. It cannot come from the employees. The employees have their own roles and responsibilities, and they just have to react to it. If the leaders are not creating the right work environment, that's what the employees are going to react to. It's like putting diesel fuel in a gasoline engine. It's not going to work, and it's going to cause a lot of different problems. So the right fuel does matter. And what that is for every organization is completely different because there's a lot of different aspects that come along with it. I mean, to direct a programmer compared to us, directing a mechanic, completely different people, and they have to have a different work environment to be able to thrive. So you have to take um, everything in stride to be able to create that working environment. All right. So we've already talked a lot about how trust and productivity go hand in hand. I mean, if you're not fueling your team in the correct way, then they can't improve. They can't focus on their workplace. I talked to a person a few months ago, and they're a graphic designer. Their workplace is not well right now. And I was like, when you go to work, how much can you actually focus on your work? Well, the person responded, I can't because I'm always worried about my job. And the way that we are directed is through a lot of intimidation. And so if there's intimidation in the workplace, that means that there's no trust. And for some reason, they think that people can be inspired by intimidation. Um, you're not in a war zone. You're in a work environment. And if that work environment is like a war zone, of course you're not going to have productivity. People are worried about so many other aspects rather than just getting their simple jobs done. There's so much more to it that people don't realize. They're indicators, as we call them. If they're fearing intimidation and they like to have that, um, they're not going to create a good working place unless they have a bunch of soldiers that are trained to be able to understand that and to move, to be inspired through intimidation and fear, which I don't know a lot of people, even soldiers, that would be. Um, so, so do you have anything else to add to it?
I think it's just important to also realize that change is hard. So, and it takes a lot of determination and practice to be able to change and develop that trust better.
And that's a good point. I think that we actually should, we'll talk about that in one of our upcoming podcasts because change management is a whole issue of itself. And so many leaders think that, oh, I know exactly what this environment needs. And it's like, why don't you consult the people that are actually in the environment and help them to come up with the right ideas? Because you as a leader, it's impossible to know everything about everybody and the environment that they personally work in. And if you do think that you know everything about it, then I'm sorry, but you're severely mistaken. You need to trust your employees on what they do and how they need to direct their workplace. So, so yes, we will talk about that again, but I hope this helps somebody. And I really hope that leaders will think about the workplace and how good their employees are and think about all their different personalities and everything that it takes to really power the organization forward. Leaders are just the drivers. Like we said in the first of it, the the engine that powers the organization forward is really the employees. Leaders turn it on and direct it, but employees are the power. And if they don't realize that, if leaders don't realize that, then they're not going to have, the right employees to really power that organization forward. So thank you for your time, and we'll sign off.